Welcome to my virtual campfire. I'm Crystal Kelly. It is times like these that our ancestors would have started telling stories around a campfire, searching for meaning in our existence. We all have our corona stories to tell. Think of our phone as the warm glow of a virtual campfire. Each week, listen to stories from all over the world about how we, as humans, fit into the vibrations of Mother Nature and the universe. Collectively, let's co-create a future through conversation and storytelling and music. With love. In episode 7, I find joy. Figuratively and in reality, I have a joyful conversation with Joy Booth. Joy is an international musician, singer, and songwriter from Navan, County Meath. County Meath is the heritage capital of Ireland. It is where the High Kings of Ireland lived. Joy and I talk about a spiritual journey to Peru and how that impacted her music. She explains the inspiration behind her new album, and she plays us a lovely song called In Your Living Room. Joy's humor, as well as her caring heart, come through in her music and in our conversation. Joy's new album, All You Were, is due out in 2021, and I'll put all of this information on my website, crystalkelly.com. So I am so excited to be here with Joy Booth. She's a singer-songwriter from Navan. I'm probably saying it wrong, County Meath, Ireland. It's the heritage capital of Ireland, where the High Kings of Ireland used to rule. And she comes with some pretty high talents too. So I'm really excited to have this special chat with you and hopefully hear some of your music. And I wanted to kind of start with how we met, because we met in Peru. You live in Ireland, I live in Seattle, and we met in Peru. And tell me a little bit about what took you to Peru, and then how your life in music kind of took a shift after that trip.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on, first of all. It's an honor to be on your podcast. But yeah, so we met in Peru in 2017, was it?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So, I suppose without kind of going into all the detail, what kind of happened was that I lost my dad really suddenly a few months before that, and just kind of got a really strong urge to go to Peru to drink ayahuasca. And also through my research, I kind of learned about San Pedro as well. And I heard about Leslie Myberg and Mark and Simon Myberg, and I thought, yeah, I want to go and meet these people. And like you and your family, I booked this trip through Travis and Tasha, so through Soul Remedy. And they kind of did everything. They organized everything except the flight there. So I had to book my own flight from Dublin. And I flew out there by myself, all the way from Dublin to Lima, and then Lima to Cuzco. And I suppose I had certain expectations of what I wanted to get from the trip, but I got so much more from it than I ever could have dreamed. Well, first of all, you and your family, I got you guys.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I literally brought you home with me, but it took a couple of years for you to come over and visit me in Ireland. So we can talk about that maybe a bit later on, but that was really, really special. But in terms of, I suppose, specifically, if we're talking about music, so when I went to Peru, I had been, writing some songs. I'd been planning to record an album, and I had a lot of music stuff already done. But when I got to Peru, and especially during our medicine journeys and things like that, I got this kind of sense that, the way actually we learned a lot about Andean mysticism, which would be kind of similar to Celtic mysticism in that they talk about the different realms, so, the different worlds, so the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. And something that I kind of realized while we were there in Peru is that a lot of the kind of music that I've been playing was very much like middle world music, talking about boys being mean or drinking too much, or, you know, that kind of great, okay, like drinking songs. I am Irish, so I do sing a lot about drinking, but you know, singing about those kind of life experiences, which is generally kind of what I'd always done. I realized that was very middle world kind of stuff. And this is like, to anybody who has never done any of these kind of things before, never explored consciousness in this way, this sounds probably really airy fairy or woo woo, you would say.
Yeah, woo woo for sure.
But I'm a big believer in the woo woo. But yeah, in like during those journeys, I kind of started to realize that the guitar playing and the songwriting that I was kind of doing before was very much in this kind of realm. But I got a real urge to start exploring music in other realms. So, you know, singing bowls and drumming, you know, tribal drumming and kind of chanting and, you know, real sort of primal ways of using your instruments and your voice, you know. And I felt like some of that's definitely lower world stuff, some of it's definitely, you know, upper world stuff. So I think that was one of the things that I took home with me, particularly the drumming thing. I got this like it was like a message, you know, you need to buy a bodhrán, which I actually have a bodhrán on the wall behind me there, but it took me ages to, I'm sure you can totally relate to this, that loads of stuff probably happened in Peru that's only really sinking in now. And it's like 4 years later, you're like, oh, I remember that thing, you know, that came to me back then. And so nowadays, I suppose since then, I mean, I have been doing my normal music stuff. I've nearly got my album finished, which is really exciting. But I also went and did a course in sound healing. So using like Tibetan singing bowls and crystal bowls and rattles and drums and all that. And then I actually recently enough started studying shamanism. Mm-hmm. Really interested in that, and using the drum as a way to journey into your consciousness, you know, and into your dreams. And I think at first when I was in Peru, I sort of felt for a while after I got back, I was like, the music that I'm playing, it just seems to be so lacking in substance compared to what I would been doing in Peru. I was like, oh, I'm singing about they seemed like stupid songs.
Yeah.
And I was able to thankfully process all that and realize, no, it's not that there's stupid songs. It's just different. It's different to what and you're, you know, using these other kind of instruments. So now, yeah, I'm very much trying to delve into using music as a way to explore consciousness. And
I love that. That's amazing. I didn't know that you were into the crystal singing bowls. I, as well, since we've come back, have gotten into all of those same types of, I think I would call them indigenous instruments, maybe things that our ancestors used. And a lot of this, even this podcast stems from that, because I had this concept of a virtual campfire, you know, like who would I want to be around my campfire? What would our ancestors be doing right now if they were here? And maybe even calling them with our music to join us in this time, you know? And so I think that a lot of even just us talking right now, it all started back then, but we're really exploring these realms, like you said, and it's really exciting. I wonder if, like, I always wonder what this all means, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like, and maybe it's just the journey, you know, but something really strong about music has pulled me since I was in Peru. And I've been on other spiritual kind of trips, but there was definitely something about, for me, it was the San Pedro ceremony that really pushed me to a whole nother level, I think.
Do you remember Roberto, the harp?
Yes.
Into the garden.
That was amazing.
That's one of the things, I will remember that vividly forevermore. You know, that was one of those kind of, is this really happening kind of moments, you know, like this sort of like magical being wandered into the garden with a big harp on his back while I'm sitting there, you know, contemplating my Irishness and Irish music and all this kind of, and he just appears, and I'm not sure if he's real or not, and it turns out he's very real, and played this amazing gig for us in the garden and played all these Beatles songs. And there was something really powerful about that, especially because it was instrumental. There was no lyrics, no singing. It was just the beautiful sound of this man's spirit. You know, that's what he was kind of projecting out into the garden. We were all just sort of sitting there going, wow.
It was amazing. It was that day, actually, I think of my entire life, that was my favorite day I've ever had. And I was a little bit the same way. Like when he was setting up his harp, I was like, what's going on? Is this really going on? Or because no one had said he was coming. And I'll actually put more information on the podcast about who we listened to. But from what I remember, and maybe you remember more, I remember that he had played all over the world. He had played at the White House. He had played for a lot of spiritual leaders and political leaders. And it was really special.
Yeah, he was like a world-class jazz harpist. He's from Paraguay originally. And he sort of drifted over to me and started chatting, but he was kind of like, you know, he was obviously very experienced with San Pedro himself. And that's why he thought, this would be a cool thing to do for some people who are doing San Pedro in the garden. And he was very aware that maybe he wouldn't be welcome. You know, I could have been talking to God, you know, as before. Don't interrupt people when they're taking San Pedro. They could be talking to God.
Right.
Like, you know, sort of sussing me out. And then I kind of said to him, no, you're very welcome, you know, to sit down. And we started chatting. And it turned out he had lost his dad not long before I'd lost mine. And I had an uncle who'd lived in Paraguay for years. So we had a lot of common ground. And we talked a lot about music and where music comes from and what music means. And it was just this like really mind-blowing experience. And then going into the garden to hear him play, I was just like, okay, it's going to take a lot to top this day. You know, really, really amazing.
What special memories. It's just, and then for you to take that back to Ireland and tell us about how this year has been for you, just because it's a significant year this last year with coronavirus. And just tell us about what you've been doing.
Where to start? A lot of work. I had to go from working on a university campus to working remotely. So that was kind of weird. House a couple of times. Like, you know, it was a really turbulent year in many ways. But right now, I'm living in a little house out the country, you know, kind of in a rural location. Still working from home, but much more freedom to be musical and make music and make noise late at night and all that kind of stuff. So since I've come here, which is probably, when was it, the end of September, October, it was like, you know, the creative tap had been turned off for the whole first, you know, 7 or 8 months of the pandemic for lots of reasons. But since I've kind of found my own little space, I think that's a big lesson that I've learned, is that, you know, in terms of your creativity, you need to give yourself space and time for it to let that flow, because otherwise it doesn't happen. So, you know, I often, like, my style of writing, or not my style of writing, but my writing process, I suppose, is like, I write when it comes, you know, when inspiration strikes. But if you don't create the conditions for that to happen, then it never does. You know, it's impossible. It doesn't happen at all.
It's so true. I find that as a creative person, you can't put pressure on yourself to make something or to have a deadline, because in the creative process, I believe that time doesn't exist. I think that when we're being creative, we are maybe in the past, maybe we're in the future, maybe we're in the now, but we're in a zone, you know, like a creative zone, and being able to make that space for yourself is really important. I know it's important for me, and it sounds like, from what I've kind of seen what you're doing on Facebook, it sounds like you're able to get in the studio too and be recording.
Yeah, which is really amazing. Well, you know, we started recording the album. We started pre-production on the album probably 3 years ago now at this stage. I've lost all concept of time really over the last while, but we started, let's say, officially pressing the big red button 2 years ago. And for one reason or another, be it illness or be it different things, had to get rescheduled. The fact that there's just so many people involved and scheduling has always been a little bit tricky. But then this all happened last year, and it was like, okay, I had a load of dates booked in the studio and they all got cancelled. And then as the year went on and things kind of like, I'm not sure what it's like there in the States at the moment in terms of lockdowns and restrictions and stuff, but it's been so strict here in Ireland. There's been no pubs open for nearly a year now at this stage, no gigs, no anything. And then even studios, it's been kind of tricky. We're even at the moment, as we speak, there's a 5-kilometer limit on everybody's travel. So you can't go any further than 5 kilometers from your house. Yeah.
Whoa.
Kind of scary in some ways because it's been going on for a while and it's hard to kind of see where the end of it is. And there's been protests, there's been a lot of kind of civil unrest because of it all. And it's tricky to kind of figure, obviously, you have to have compassion for the healthcare workers, the people who've, lost their lives to coronavirus. I know people myself who've been ill with it, who've, passed away from it. But at the same time, having these kind of restrictions physically, I think does a lot to your mental health as well, and your emotional health and your creativity. So if you can't go further than 5 kilometers in the real world, it's very hard to go past your immediate world in your head and in your heart. So I think it definitely is having a bit of an effect on people. So whenever things kind of relaxed throughout the year, say at the end of the summer, some of those restrictions were eased and we were able to get some creative stuff done. And then as things kind of tightened up again, it sort of feels like the creativity is kind of tightening up again, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of, for me, obviously not for everybody, I know it's for you, like I was saying to you at the start, it's that you're thriving creatively in this kind of world. You've released 2 books, you've got a podcast, God only knows what else you're doing, I'm sure probably knows. And it's really inspiring to see that, especially as somebody who has been kind of struggling to keep any kind of creativity flowing in any kind of a consistent way, because it's just, the whole thing has been bonkers. Meet up with people, share music, play together, especially when you're used to doing it so often. And then, your band are scattered all around the county or the country and you can't go near them. It's really weird.
I'm struggling to understand, because when I went to Ireland, the pub life is such a part of your culture and it's such a wonderful, fun, I can't even tell you how many fun nights it was like in a pub until 7 a.m. after we had left you, one of our last nights there, and just singing and hanging out with these people that I didn't know. And it was just pure joy. I mean, your name is, you are so perfect for your name. You are like a vessel of joy, and, but what is it really like? How are Irish people like without a pub? I mean, like really, like, do they drink in the park? Do they sing in the park? What is it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think a lot of people have been asking themselves that, like, what are we without the pub? Because the pub is not just somewhere that you go and get pissed. I mean, we do that, obviously, but it's way more than that, especially in small towns, in rural areas. It's like the community hub. It's where, the babies get christened, the day after the wedding party happens. It's where the GAA, the football team meets after a match, or it's where, like all the clubs, all the groups, all the families, everybody meets there. And that's, the focus of so much of our social activity, be it right or wrong, but that's the truth. So a lot of them with food, or, like I moved in to the area that I'm in. I'm here, nearly 6 months now. And the local pub, I've passed the local pub every day and I've never been in it.
Oh my gosh.
It's really weird. But I think for a lot of people, it's not about the drinking, really. It's about the interaction. And certainly for me and a lot of my friends and people close to me, it's the music. The pub is always, it's where we learned how to play music. It's where we got to gig. my boyfriend and I, Paul, we started to organise some lovely gigs just before this whole thing happened. So some original band gigs, and then we had this lovely songwriter night, or it was more than a songwriter night. It was kind of a sort of an open mic with a bit more structure to it. So people could sing a song, one song, pass on the guitar or the mic or whatever, or they could say a poem. But the only rule is that it has, whatever you do has to be your own. You know, it's something creative. So we were building this lovely little community of people, and more people were kind of coming along. And we were trying to sort of do it early in the evening, so the people, if it wasn't like a night's drinking they were looking for, they could come in, take part, and go home then if they wanted, and not missed the whole thing. So for us, you know, it's been way more than we still drink. We get bags of cans, as we say here in Ireland. We'll drink our bags. We had bags of cans, actually, together in Kilmainham when you were staying there. So bags of cans is definitely a thing in Ireland, you know, especially in the summertime. You get a, you know, take away from the off license and go and have a few drinks outside, or barbecues, or, you know, whenever we get a day's sunshine or just a day of no rain in Ireland, we'll be outside and we'll probably be having a few drinks. But, you know, we also have beer gardens and pubs for that kind of thing as well. So I suppose, you know, so many people are struggling to adjust to the culture shock of not having the pub. But I'm sure they're finding other ways to imbibe the alcohol.
Yeah. I love how I actually didn't know all of those things that go down in Irish pubs. I had no idea babies were christened in pubs.
They're christened in the church, but then the afters would,
Okay.
or in the function room of a hotel. I painted a really weird picture there, but that's not to say a baby was never christened in a pub in Ireland, or who knows, maybe they were. The afters of it, yeah, definitely. The baby would be in the corner in the little seat, and everybody be having a few drinks, wetting the baby's head. That's what.
Oh my gosh, that's the visual of that is just fantastic. You know, when you get like pushed to be creative, like how we were saying that, you know, you have to kind of set the stage to be creative, but how, like, I don't even know what the words are for it. Like, what fuels your desire to create that space to be creative?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And it's something that I have really been thinking about lately. And I think it's because, so for me, certainly songwriting and playing music is like a healing process. You know, it's I need to fix something within myself, or release something within myself, or figure something out inside myself. That's why, and it's never been a conscious thing, but that's what it is. So I think I felt so compelled to, you know, find this little place where I could play music because I needed to. It was a case that, you know, I was physically, emotionally, and mentally, you know, not feeling well because I wasn't able to do it. And I remember I mentioned earlier on about doing pre-production for the album, and what that means basically is, you know, kind of getting your ducks in a row with what songs you're going to play on the album, who's going to be on them, what structure you're going to put on them, etc. So the first day of that involved me going and sitting in the studio with the producer and a friend of mine who's kind of helping to orchestrate the whole thing, and just sitting there and playing all of my songs one after the other, just me and the guitar, and been kind of going, you know, here they are, there you go, here's all my songs. And when I finished, Mark, the producer, he just goes, wow, I just sort of feel like you're really healing something with these songs. You know, they're healing songs. And it really, really stuck with me, because a lot of them, it's funny because a lot of my songs, if you hear them, you'll think that I'm a really sad or angry or lonely person, but I'm not. I'm quite the opposite. And the reason I think that is because I get all that out in my music. So I don't have to carry it around anymore. Once it's on the paper or it's out in the world, I don't have to deal with that anymore. So I suppose what compels me to write my own songs usually is, or traditionally it has been, a breakup, a loss of some behind some sort of, when I say a loss, it could be bereavement, or it could be just a loss of my sense of self, a feeling of being lost. Just any kind of upheaval. That's kind of the red thread through a lot of my songs. It's all coming from a place of either hurting or being confused about something. And usually it's funny because the way that I feel at the start, a lot of my songs just come tumbling out in a few minutes. They'll, the idea comes and then the song is there, and I always feel infinitely better. Like I have a song called The Wallowing Blues, and it's about just feeling pretty low and pretty down. And by the end of it, I'm singing about how it's grand. Everything is fine. You don't need to be, it's okay to wallow, but fuck the wallowing blues. That's actually like a line in the song. But the process, those 3 minutes of playing the song from start to finish, I went from, oh God, everything's awful, to, oh no, everything's fine. So for me, the writing process is like medicine. It's actually like a healing modality for me. It's amazing.
Like as an artist, I can so identify with that, because I feel like sometimes it's those deepest emotions, those, whatever is like, and I love how you said that once you get it out, you don't have to carry it around with you anymore. And I totally know that feeling. Like, I think that's, it's really special, and it's inspiring. It's really inspiring. Will you play some music for us?
No, I'm all good. And I think that it leads nicely into the song that I'm going to play. So just to give a little bit of background about it, it's a song that I wrote after my dad was cremated. And you have to wait like a little while to get the ashes back and all that kind of stuff. And we got them back a couple of weeks later. But then we had this sort of box of ashes, and we were like, what do we do with this? We didn't want to leave them out in the hall. It was kind of weird having them in the living room. It was kind of all a bit weird. And I remember whoever else in my family that had been in the rooms suddenly had all left, and I was in the room on my own in the living room with my dad's box of ashes. And it was really, obviously, a really sad and low moment. And out of nowhere, I just got this really strange like fit of giggles. And I thought, this kind of dark, ironic joke came to mind. There's a dead man in your living room. And I started laughing. I thought, geez, my dad would think that was really funny too. And I kind of came to the conclusion that he sent me this song as a way for me to get through the darkness of it all. But yeah, I think I get a bit of a weird sense of humor from him. So I kind of like to blame him for this song, that it wasn't really me. It was
I love that.
Weird sense of humor. This song is called Living Room. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony, I know you would laugh too. They say only love can break your heart. I've heard only love can break your heart. Well, I'm not sure about that, but one thing I know is true. Only thing saving my heart is love for you. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony, I know you would laugh too. Oh, those roses you sowed in the garden, those lovely roses you sowed in the garden, all came out to bloom and they were asking after you. Those roses, they're really missing you. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man laughing at the irony. I know you would laugh too. Whiskey tastes different since you've gone. Whiskey tastes different since you've gone. Now I enjoy it less, but I appreciate it more. Getting through this kind of thing's what whiskey's for. There's a dead man in your living room. A dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony. I know you would laugh at the irony. I know you would laugh at that irony too.
I love that. I love how
I was trying to like sing away from the mic so I wouldn't deafen you, but
you have a very soothing voice, and I love how you frame it, and how you it's a beautiful picture that you framed there for us. And just, it's very special. As you were playing, I was remembering a really wonderful memory that I had with you when we came to visit, and we were walking through that park in Dublin. So we were there, and it was a really sunny day. It was beautiful. And my 3 daughters were there, and Jason, my husband, and Penny, our youngest, was like 2 or 3. And she kept saying, "Did we find Joy yet? Where's Joy? Did we find Joy yet?" And I kept saying, "Penny, she's right here." And then you kept saying, "Hi, I'm Joy." It's like in her mind, she thought of Joy, like, because the whole time leading up to the trip, we kept saying, we're going to go see Joy, because they had met you in Peru. So I don't think she thought you were a person.
Sometimes I wonder if I really am.
It's like you're a spirit, your spirit of joy, and sitting in that park, and the kids were eating ice cream, and we were just sitting there, and I remember thinking, this is Joy.
Oh, that's lovely. That's a great memory. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to get all emotional.
Sorry, it was just it really was so fun and special.
Yeah, the whole thing was so special, and seeing the girls and seeing Jason and seeing you on my home soil, I just wished that you could have stayed longer, or that I had somewhere that I could put you up. I mean, I will down the line.
It's all good.
But it was just, and I remember one of the girls saying to me, I can't remember if it was Sophia or Eloise, said that I was like their cool Irish aunt.
You still are, by the way.
I always will be. It's funny, isn't it, how sometimes you meet people, like you said earlier on about creativity having like no time. Sometimes when you just connect with people, there is no time either. Like we spent only, a short time in Peru, and you guys only spent a few days here, but the connection might as well be lifelong. It
probably is lifetimes long. I mean, honestly, sometimes our souls match, and we encounter people throughout our lives that we've met before in those other realms, or maybe in the future too. It's just that's kind of the magical mystery of life, and why we connect, and I think one of the connections, and sometimes I don't even know, I don't have words to describe some of the things that go through my head. But I know that like when I had met you in Leslie's garden, I said spontaneously, and I don't know why I said this, I said, "Oh, we're going to come visit you." I had only known you like a minute or something.
Yeah, and I knew you meant it. And I knew that was going to happen. It was funny because, you know, obviously you've traveled an awful lot. You've met a lot of people around the world. I've done a bit, not nearly as much, but you meet people and you have this great time. And you're like, yeah, we'll stay in touch. We'll, you know, come visit. And you sort of have this intention to do it. But when you said that to me, I knew that you would. I said, yeah, I'm definitely going to come to Ireland for sure. I have no doubt.
I know it's so, and sometimes I don't know why I say things like that, but I know that I mean them, you know, and if it comes out so spontaneously, it must be real, you know, because definitely, yeah.
It's so funny. I think I was telling you before as well, like you left a mark here in Ireland as well, not just on me, but you gave me your book with the two birds, Plop and Splat, right? And I gave it to my niece and nephew. I gave it to one of them, and they absolutely loved it. And they, like, it's still in their house. I'm pretty sure they probably still read it now and again as well, you know. And it's funny because they know that my American friend wrote this and they know the whole idea behind it, but they haven't met you, but I feel like they will meet you at some point, and you can be like, yeah, I'm the one that wrote that book. But they, you know, they'll understand it more because they'll be a bit older. Yeah, it's amazing, the connection.
It is. I look forward to meeting them. Just to explain what that book is about, it's about these little birds who poop art. And so I wrote it inspired by my kids, obviously, but more so inspired by the idea that creativity is infinite, and even in something as mundane and you know, awful as poop, we can see shapes and we can see inspiration. And I used to walk around and I would see all these bird poops, and in my mind's eye, they'd turn into shapes, and I'd take pictures of them. And then it ultimately turned into a story. And my kids kept asking me to Mom, tell me that story. And then their friends would be over and they'd say, tell us that silly story. And so, you know, I had to make a book out of it because they were pushing me to. And so it makes me so happy that other kids are enjoying it too. I was hoping that would happen. And I look forward to meeting them one day.
Yeah, it's such a reflection of you as a person, though, to kind of see, you know, shit and think this is you know, and you entwined that with a beautiful love story, you know, about two birds. And it just, for me, like when I read it, I just thought, yeah, that's so Crystal. To come up with that idea and that concept out of that, you know, I think it just says so much about who you are as a person. And yeah, I think it's a real, just a gem. I think more people know about it.
I know. I need to get that one reprinted because I had ran out of all the copies that I had printed, and then online on-demand printing started getting big, and so that's what I've been publishing my books now. But I haven't put that one into the online print yet. So that's one of the projects that I'm still working on. And like you said, I probably have a million things going on, which is undeniably true.
Yeah. I'm sure it's nothing more than you can handle. Especially like sometimes you just kind of get, you know, what you can cope with when you can cope. Like if you get a little burst of energy or creativity, you know, you'll do it. It's not that it's going to be too much for you. You'll get it all done. It just doesn't have to all be done now. But
right.
Yeah, I'm delighted just to see all your output. It's great, but also, yeah, just be careful that you don't take on too much at the same time. And just because somebody like me says, oh, you need to print more of them, doesn't mean that you have to do it right now.
No, I think all of my projects that I work on, I feel pretty inspired to do. And I enjoy the creativity process a lot, even if it's hard. And I enjoy learning new things. So I think that I think it pushes me, something like your music is healing for you, and for music is for me too, but all these projects are healing as well. Like just even having this talk with you and making the time to do it, it was it means a lot to me as in a healing process, and I feel like our planet is needing healing. Our Mother Earth is hurting right now, and so I feel really called to kind of wake up these vibrations that we can kind of gift back to the earth and to humanity, that is very nurturing and healing, and then I think that we all have the ability to heal ourselves, and including Mother Earth. She just needs that help from us, because we are all one, and we are the planet, and she is us, and we're almost all water, so it all comes back for me to that, just anything positive that I can do, it just can ripple. That's, and it doesn't even have to be big. A lot of times it's little, and a lot of times it's goofy. Like I do a lot of goofy things and I'm very sarcastic.
No, that's brilliant though. You don't want to be taken, some things you have to take seriously, but you don't want to be taking everything too seriously. But it's almost like you're fueled by it. So rather that, like some people who could have that amount of plates in the air could get drained by it, it's almost like it does completely the opposite to you. It's happy it's making you as well. It's clearly just like you're beaming and glowing. And definitely seems to be serving you well. Sometimes we can get caught up in doing things that aren't really serving us, that are for other people, and we're not really getting a whole lot from it ourselves. But it seems to be completely the opposite for you and where you're at right now, which is brilliant. I'm delighted for you. I'm really, really happy.
Thank you. And it really is truly a passion for me to just talk with people and connect. It really is. And it does fuel me. It's very, for me, it's just like how you said your music like strings you along, or I can't remember the words you used, but I feel like my projects do the same thing for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. to have it, not that, everybody is creative, but we're lucky to realize that we have creativity. So many people think that they don't. They're like, I can't sing, or I can't play, or I'm having a note in my head. That's a real like Irish thing. Having a note in my head means like you can't sing. Or people think they can't dance, or that they can't draw, or that they can't whatever. But like we all can. Everybody, you do it without anybody even teaching it to you. From when you can move and when you can see, like we already start singing and dancing and painting and everything. It's kind of a thing that we learn, unfortunately, as we get older. People start telling us that we're not good enough at doing that, so we shouldn't do that anymore. And it's so sad that some people grow up then believing that they don't have any creativity, that they're not a creative person. There's no such thing as a not creative person, and I think we're lucky that we didn't fall into that horrible trap growing up. Maybe it's just because we're stubborn. Maybe we're doing it anyway.
I think people definitely told me that I am not good at dancing, and I'm not very good at singing. And I have a funny story. One time I went out dancing with some friends, and it was my brother's girlfriend at the time, and we're dancing and I'm having fun, and she's like, everyone told me that you were like not a good dancer. And I was like, oh yeah, can't you tell I'm not? And she goes, no, you're an amazing dancer. You just dance to your own beat.
Need more people like that in the world. Who were the people telling her that you weren't a good dancer? How did that conversation come up?
Well, my dancing's definitely something to be desired. But I have a lot of fun, and I think that's all that matters.
I think if you look too cool and you're dancing, you're doing it wrong, unless you're doing it professionally,
right?
In a setting where you're just supposed to be having fun, then just let it go. Look,
yeah, exactly. I did love that kind of mind shift where I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to follow their beat. Like, I don't follow anyone's beat anyway, like in life. So it made perfect sense to me. It was a turning point in my dancing career, actually.
Great. Tell me a bit more about the woo-woos. So you were saying that you laughed when you heard me saying in an interview that I was in a band called the Woo-Hooers, and you said that you have this new meditation band called the Woo-Woos. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's my two really good friends and I. We're all three mothers, and all through Corona, we've been cooped up in the house with our kids and our husbands, and the days get long a little bit, and so we started just kind of meeting outside, and we would sit, and I bought some crystal bowls, and we just sit and we would play. And it made us feel really good. And then we would also go on walks together along, we live near the water. And so we would go along. And one day we were walking and I was like, hey, you guys, what if we like kind of make this like a band or a group or something? And they were like, what? Like, other people don't want to hear this, so we just do it for us. And I was like, no, I have a feeling that other people do want to hear it. And so one day we went down by the beach, and we set up our bowls and we played, and people came up to us and they said, for one, a lot of people didn't know what it was, what the bowls were. And this one woman was like, I was sitting there on the beach and I started hearing your voices. And then I started hearing these amazing sounds, and I knew it was coming from you guys. And she said she just sat there and she meditated and looked out at the water and listened to it. And she just thanked us. She was like, that was amazing. That was like a gift you gave us. And so I think that was just confirmation for us that we want to keep sharing it. And, how it is with groups and scheduling, and we're all busy and everything, so it'll become what it becomes. But we also liked being called the woo-woos because we thought it wasn't too serious. And
I love it. Absolutely love it. It's almost like a flash mob sound bath or some sort of like vigilante meditation bringing thing. I think it's brilliant. And yeah, I can understand the logistics are probably tricky, or it's hard to figure out where to go next, but I'm sure you'll figure it out.
I think we will. I think we feel very inspired, and we're all three really excited about it. So I think that it's it'll be it'll be what it will be. It's a lot like back to Robert, the harp player. He played a whole set of Beatles songs. Yeah. And it was, my dad was a big fan of the Beatles growing up. And so that was kind of the soundtrack to my childhood a little bit that he was playing. And so it, what will be, will be.
Yeah, I got a CD actually at the time. Actually, this is a funny story about you.
Oh no.
No, it's really good. So I remember turning around to you and Jason at one point and being like, how do we know that this really happened? We were kind of joking, like very deep in the medicine still. And we were like, how are we going to know this is real? And then we saw he started taking out CDs to sell. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Okay. I go and buy a CD. And then I was like, oh, I can't remember if it was my idea or your idea to get him to sign it. And I ran up to him with it. And I was like, oh, would you mind signing the CD? And he's like, oh, do you have a pen? And then you, out of nowhere, just said, I have a Sharpie. Always have a Sharpie. You should always have a Sharpie nearby. I learned this in Siberia. Like,
yes, it's true.
So you're able to give him the Sharpie and he signed it, and thankfully I still have it, and we can all be sure that day really happened. So
that's amazing. I also have a copy of it, and he signed it. And yeah, if there's any travel tip that I could give anyone in the world, travel with a Sharpie. I can't tell you how many times a Sharpie and duct tape have come in handy.
Yeah, it's good advice. That's just good, like, worldly wisdom.
Sometimes it's the little things, like, yeah, and I don't know what it is about a Sharpie. Like it just, there's so many uses for it when you're traveling. I don't even know.
Is this podcast sponsored by Sharpie?
Right. It should be. It's like, because for that one day that you're sitting in the garden and a world famous harp player is playing and you need that signature to prove that it happened, we wouldn't know for sure if this was just our, memories or whatever. And Sharpies are powerful little tools.
It's all about how you use them,
Yeah.
How you use it. And you definitely use Sharpies for good. So.
Oh, that's true. You can like graffiti and yeah, totally.
Oh dear.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a lot of memories like come flooding back about the whole thing. Like even just sort of seeing your face. Or I even remember when you guys come over, like I was saying earlier on, like some time passes after you've had that experience and then something triggers another stage of processing a load of stuff. And I feel like that's definitely happened. Even knowing that I was going to get to talk to you had me thinking about that kind of stuff this week, and a few sort of little things sort of shifted into place, and it's amazing how just having a connection with somebody can do that, or having a conversation, or even knowing that you're going to have a conversation can
all the things. You're right. And our minds, if you don't have those triggers, then and it's even easy to kind of forget about significant things, even like a trip like we had taken, like a spiritual journey. It's like until you really have to think about it again, it can kind of lay in. I've got this concept that my mind has just a bunch of little boxes in it, which is kind of funny. Your song was talking about a box, and in my mind, I have all these little boxes, and they and some of them have keys in them, and sometimes something will happen, and the key will show up, and that box will get opened, and it's usually a lot of times a flood of emotion or remembering something that I didn't even know I knew. Like maybe it's like a feeling of knowing, and I've had these spontaneous moments when these keys have opened up in my life and everything makes sense. It's like just everything in that moment made sense. And then it's fleeting, it goes away and the mystery is back. But it's kind of knowing that box is still there and maybe I can tap into it one more time or something.
Definitely. Well, I think, yeah, I understand what you mean. I think it's kind of almost like a remembering of something, like you were talking earlier on about past lives and things like that. There could be something there that we've learned before we could ever possibly remember. I mean, I don't know, who knows, but it could be like we've all had that feeling where we're like, I feel like I already knew this, that it's come from somewhere. But the other thing is that in order to maintain any semblance of sanity, you couldn't be thinking, or you couldn't access all of that information all of the time. You have to archive it away somewhere. And it is great to get those little triggers and those keys to kind of give you access to it. But then sure, it's gone again. You have to move on to something else. It's great to have people and situations that can bring it all sort of flooding back. And that's definitely how I feel over the last few days. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I love it. I actually had a crazy day today. I may put this in or I may not. I was going to meet a friend and I got out of my car, and right as I stepped behind my car, someone came and smashed into my car. And it was a nurse who was coming back from her overnight shift, and she fell asleep driving. And so it was, it was one of those things that triggered a lot of emotions for me, because I know she's doing so much good work to help people right now. And, but I could also see that she wasn't doing enough to help herself. Like, she was very exhausted, and, she could have really hurt somebody in that moment. And I told her, I said, I just hope that you get some rest and take care of yourself. It's like, but yeah, it's been kind of an emotional day because of that. It just, was, and now of course my car is all smashed up and have to get it fixed, but luckily no one was hurt. But it was definitely one of those things where you're like, wow, we're all sort of at our wit's end. We're like a year through this crazy situation, and shit's real. Like, it's real.
I mean, you made such a really interesting and important point there, I think, which is that sometimes, and in a broader sense, sometimes by not looking after ourselves and taking care of ourselves, we are a danger to other people, be it emotionally, people that have anger or hurt that they're not dealing with and that they're carrying around, they're projecting that onto people wherever they go, and they're creating a lot of hurt. Like that poor nurse, as you said, like, what a good person to even be a nurse. You have to, have a very special and amazing quality. And what she's doing is really incredible. I couldn't do it. No way.
Oh, there's no way I couldn't do it either.
No, I have friends that work in healthcare, in all different ways. And I hear them talking about it. It's like, no, I'm definitely not that special. I couldn't do it. At the same time, it doesn't matter how good your intentions are, or how pure you are, your intentions and all of that. Like, I mean, if you don't look after yourself in a conscious way, then yeah, you could be doing damage to other people. So I think it's probably no accident it was your car that she happened to crash into, because thankfully, as you say, nobody was hurt physically or anything like that, but somebody else could have been a disaster for her.
It really could have been. And it's funny that you say that, because I told her, I said, I know you don't know me, but I'm probably the best person that you could have hit. So, yeah.
Sure, she realizes that. And like, she must have gotten such a fright and such a shock, as of course you did too. But I mean, hopefully it will give her a bit of a wake-up call to look after herself. And that, like, especially in that line of work, people get so exploited and taken advantage of, because it is such a vocation, and because you're sort of innately compassionate and kind, you're sort of vulnerable to some asshole boss telling you that you have to work for 24 hours straight, or that you can't have a break or whatever, so like, yeah, I hope it does make her think that it's only her that has the choice to look after herself. Nobody's going to do that for her. So
yeah,
I hope she's doing all right now.
I know, I do too. She mentioned that she had asked to be taken off the overnights, but that she was an experienced nurse, and they needed the more experienced nurses overnight instead of during the day. And so they had denied her request to be taken off. And I told her, I said, I think you should ask your boss again, because, this isn't, even if you're more experienced and you think you're helping people, you're not doing your full job to its highest potential, because you're not able to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that,
how experienced she is if she's in a hospital bed herself, it's that's horrible to think that kind of pressure is being put on people like that, but it is. I'm sure it is every single day, and especially the last year. So I mean, hats off to those people that have been working in those kind of jobs. I don't know how you do it, and you're unbelievable and amazing. Wow. I'd love to do this again, be it on or off podcast.
Yeah, I just thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's it's been brilliant. Really, really great to see you and chat to you and just kind of access those memories again. It's been really, really, really good. And yeah,
I know.
I'm so happy for you and so proud of you with everything that you've got going on. You're just amazing.
Oh, thank you. I think it's really fun because I try not to have expectations about where these conversations are going. You know, like I don't want to lead them too much. I just kind of want to see what spontaneously happens. And in a way, this is a little bit like my social experiment. So I
virtual campfire that really just melted my heart. I thought, oh wow, because you know the light off your phone is like vilified so often, or you know the light on your laptop, and you've just flipped that on its head and went, let's use it for
yes.
You know, good. It's the virtual campfire. I thought, yes, that's beautiful.
It's my it's the process that I went through this last year, and I realized that technology is not separate from us, and just like we are not separate from the earth, we are made of electricity, and electricity is natural, and these technologies that we hold are tools just like anything else. And instead of having this kind of negative relationship with technology, which I did have before, I definitely did, and so I've just really wanted to embrace it, and that's kind of what's gone on in my mind and why, you know, all of this has kind of come to happen.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. This song is called Living Room. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony, I know you would laugh too. They say only love can break your heart. I've heard only love can break your heart. Well, I'm not sure about that, but one thing I know is true. Only thing saving my heart is love for you. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony, I know you would laugh too. Oh, those roses you sowed in the garden, those lovely roses you sowed in the garden, all came out to bloom and they were asking after you. Those roses, they're really missing you. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony, I know you would laugh too. Whiskey tastes different since you've gone. Whiskey tastes different since you've gone. Now I enjoy it less, but I appreciate it more. Getting through this kind of thing is what whiskey's for. There's a dead man in your living room, a dead man in your living room. I'm laughing at the irony, I know you would laugh at the irony, I know you would laugh at that irony too.
Thank you for listening to my virtual campfire. I'm humbled and grateful, and with heartfelt thanks, thank you for listening all the way to the end. I hope that it caused a vibration or a thought or sparked something inside of you to make a positive change.